Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and today I am ranking all of the Fox era X-Men universe films. With Dark Phoenix being released, this marks pretty much the end of an era, the Fox era of X-Men. Now I know technically New Mutants is still on the books and was created by Fox, but it's going to be released, if it gets released at all, over a year after Disney's acquisition of Fox. So we don't know what could happen to that film within the next year, what influence Disney may have on it, and thus Dark Phoenix pretty much marks the end of Fox having control over the X-Men film universe. So I thought, what better time than now to go ahead and just rank all of the X-Men films to date. This is the first time I've ranked the series, which might be a shock because I love the X-Men. The X-Men are my favorite comic book series. Storm is my favorite superhero, period, across all of the different platforms. And honestly, I've enjoyed most of the X-Men films that Fox produced. I know they get a hard time quite often, but for the most part, I think they're good. Are they the comic books? No. Are they the 90s animated series? Certainly not. But I think they're good for what they were going for. I had fun with them. I enjoy being a part of this universe. I enjoy being with these characters. And while they often don't get it right, and they can't really keep its timeline straight, let's just be honest, I still have a lot of fun with them, and I enjoy watching them and revisiting these films. So full disclaimer, this is just my personal list. This is my ranking on how I enjoy watching the 12 films that Fox released within the X-Men universe. This has nothing to do with critical reception, box office, any sort of objective measuring of film quality. This is just how much I personally like the movies. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into the countdown. Kicking us off at number 12, aka dead last, we have X-Men Origins Wolverine. Does this really need an explanation? This is the one outright terrible film to me. Like, absolutely unwatchable. It looks like an unfinished mess. The story is just all over the place. It has literally zero understanding of any character, including Wolverine, to tell an origin story about the character. It's outrageous. Plus, after X2 in particular, getting a Wolverine origin story seemed a bit redundant, but here we were, and then they delivered just one of the worst superhero films of all time, in my estimation, and certainly, by far, the weakest of Fox's X-Men films. At number 11, I have X-Men: The Last Stand. This is easily the weakest of the actual group team X-Men films. The Last Stand is meh. First of all, it is not even in the slightest remotely comic book accurate, and to boot, a far less interesting story, which is the ultimate crime. The acting is fine, but the motives are what? The ultimate assassination of Rogue, who should have been one of the best characters in the movie series, takes place right before our eyes. The score is bland, in my opinion, the worst of the first three scores. The effects are, We lose all sense of character development in place of just killing off main characters and big action set pieces. There are certainly a lot of fun times to be had in The Last Stand, but it just completely butchers a great comic book storyline and doesn't really offer anything of service in place. At number 10, I have X-Men Apocalypse. I liked X-Men Apocalypse. I thought it was a solid movie. There, I said it. Apocalypse is certainly a very bland, big baddie type of villain, but I don't necessarily mind a big baddie type of villain. Some of his actions, though, were very questionable, and his design, while better than those promos, still never got to look good. Plus, the way they tinkered with my girl Storm's origin story, we've got some problems. Not to mention, this film really made it evident that Jennifer Lawrence called all the shots when it came to Mystique particularly, and honestly, probably with the whole film. Forget any sort of character development that had been established before. Jennifer Lawrence doesn't want to get into makeup, so yeah, forget all that mutant and proud crap you heard. But I really enjoyed the entire Eric storyline. I really think they did a fantastic job, and Michael Fassbender was amazing. James McAvoy also delivered a fantastic performance, though his character, was highly underused. And the final battle provides some fun moments, but overall felt a tad bit underwhelming. Apocalypse was fun, it was fine, I don't mind watching it, but it's only number 10. At number 9, I have Dark Phoenix. Another film that I thought was fine. It was solid, it was an enjoyable enough watch. This film mixes the weird Last Stand storyline with the comic book version of the Dark Phoenix story, and I think it more or less works okay, except they have to substitute out some elements that just didn't work for me. Again, my girl Storm is just butchered in this movie, which is a running theme in X-Men films. And it's definitely slow and a little bit dreary, but I don't mind a little bit dreary. The final third of this movie is a lot of fun. It ends on such a perfect note. I thought the beginning opened really well, and all of the acting was top tier. So, Dark Phoenix is far from the best X-Men film. It's number 9, but it's certainly not on the level of the worst of the X-Men films. At number 8, I have The Wolverine. Now, what an improvement over X-Men Origins. Whew! This was miles, leagues above that hot mess. I think The Wolverine is a really, really strong film for 2/3 of it. Unfortunately, that final third is a lot of mess. I mean, it really kind of jumps off the ledge and tries to be too much superhero, and it didn't quite work. Particularly because it was such a departure from the grounded film they had established for 2/3 of the movie. And honestly, that end is really what knocks it down to number 8. Because those first 2 acts are really strong. I loved this setting. I loved this new way to get Wolverine humanized and have Logan further exploring his past in ways that we hadn't seen and in scenarios and situations we hadn't seen. The fight choreography was really nice. It was more intimate, more brutal. And I liked getting an X-Men film on such a smaller scale in comparison to what we had seen. And it worked for me for the most part until it tried to go big scale. And then it kind of fell apart. At number 7, I have Deadpool 2. This was certainly a step down from the first Deadpool film to me personally. Mostly because it's just not as funny. Now, there are gags that really work in here, but then there are gags that I just rolled my eyes at. Plus, that little kid is so flippin' annoying. It's hard to relate or gravitate toward his character at all. But Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is absolute fire. Domino is absolute fire. While I was pretty sad that the X-Force was literally wasted, at least they were wasted in a really fun way. Josh Brolin killed it as Cable, and I thought that dynamic between he and Deadpool worked really well. I loved the dynamic between Colossus and Deadpool. So it's a lot of fun. It's kind of just like an easy breezy, good time kind of watch. At number 6, I have X-Men First Class. Now, I'm not as high on this one as I know so many people are. Now, of course, it has fantastic acting. This is where we really get to see James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender take over these iconic roles and completely transform them into their own. Plus, we have Rose Byrne, who delivers a really strong performance here as well. Many of our side characters are great, and they do a really good job of building character in this film. This is a much smaller scale X-Men movie that focuses on building up this team and getting to know these people, which makes all of the emotional stuff that comes between Charles and Eric near the end of the film so impactful, because we've spent the whole movie really building that up and understanding them as people. What doesn't work is most of our villain stuff. Kevin Bacon is, he's meh to me. And the powers and how those all looked was very meh. The final battles were kind of meh. And Mystique's look, for me, did not work in this film. Plus, I don't think Jennifer Lawrence was really comfortable in the role. I really think this was her most stilted of the performances as Mystique. She just never felt, comfortable at all. Not to mention some of the romances here were a little bit blah. Some of the powers and the X-Men that we were introduced to outside of, canon first class was like, this is a strange choice to substitute them in instead of others, but it is what it is. And it's a little bit campy. It's a little bit on the campy side for my personal liking. And it swung between like a little bit too hokey to much darker elements. So overall, First Class is fun. I definitely enjoy watching it. I think it's a really well-crafted film overall. Just definitely not top 5 for me. Speaking of, at number 5, I have X-Men. The film that doesn't get enough credit for really kicking off our current superhero marketplace. X-Men came before the Spider-Mans of the world, obviously before the MCUs of the world. We had some much darker, grittier, not successful films throughout most of the 90s. But this film is what really kicked it all back off. Now listen, I know it is berated and made fun of, but because of that, honestly, the what happens to a toad when it's struck by lightning line is just so iconic that come on, you have to love it. You have to, right? But I thought the story worked really well. I like that we really focused in on Rogue for this film and made it a really character piece about Rogue and her unique power set, as well as Logan and his mentorship with her. I thought James Marsden was really good casting as Cyclops. Yeah, an a-hole. I thought Famke Janssen was good. I even like Halle Berry as Storm. I'm not gonna lie. She's not Angela Bassett, who would have been perfect. She was fine. She tried an accent in this one, at least. It's really fun. I liked seeing like that original awesome look for Sabretooth and getting a Sabretooth versus Wolverine fight. Yes! The entire Statue of Liberty thing worked so well. And of course, Rebecca Romijn as Mystique. Just complete fire. Still one of my favorites. I know it's on the cheesier side when looked at these days, but I still love it. At number 4, I have Deadpool. Well, certainly the funniest of all the X-Men films. Deadpool is just a blast. Another film that I think is really a lot smaller scale than the majority of superhero films at large, but obviously in comparison to its X-Men universe counterparts. The biggest selling point is obviously Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. He is perfect casting for this role. Just stunning. And of course, the laughs roll. I thought this movie was hilarious. Right from those amazing opening credits. Some of the best opening credits I've ever seen in a film ever. The action is really grounded. It's really brutal. It takes full advantage of that R rating. The really smaller, simple story that I thought worked really well for introducing this character. Morena Baccarin was great in this movie, and I thought she and Ryan Reynolds had wonderful chemistry. Most everything about Deadpool works for me. I just think it's a really fun, great ride. At number 3, I have X2 X-Men United. Much like the first film, many would say this doesn't hold up very well any longer. And, that may be true, but I still have such fond memories, and I love it. First of all, it introduced us to the amazing Ottoman X2 suite, virtually the X-Men theme for the film. That is just stellar. But right from the get-go, they try to plant the seeds for Dark Phoenix, and fail, honestly. As we see in The Last Stand, could not water them properly. We have a really interesting story where we have somebody who can kind of outdo Charles Xavier, handcuffing him, and somebody who wants to rid the world of mutants, using a mutant to do so. And I thought that was such an interesting concept and way to go. Again, our acting here is really strong. Hugh Jackman just kills it as Wolverine. I think this film, he really killed it. I think this film really solidified him. My girl Storm is given more to do this time around. And that airplane scene where she is just dropping tornadoes from the sky is everything. That jail cell for Magneto was just amazing. I thought the dialogue in this film worked a whole lot more. I thought the action was great when we're down running through those bunkers in that basement. We get Nightcrawler and that amazing opening to the White House. Honestly, one of the best sequences in the entire X-Men franchise. There are so many high moments in X2. I love the whole allegory about coming out and really getting back to the roots of what X-Men has always been, and it's an allegory for the other. It's been an allegory for racism. In modern day, it's really become a big allegory for the LGBTQ community, but it's always been an allegory for those outcasted and treated different. And I think this film really highlighted that about as good as they could. So at number 2, I have X-Men Days of Future Past. Number 2 and number 1 are virtually tied because honestly, I just have a soft spot for the team films. I love it when we get the full X-Men at our disposal. What Days of Future Past does so well is teamwork. We get to see them all working together, in particular in the current day dystopia, fighting the Sentinels moments. Great. Oh, I thought they were so fantastic. I wish we had just gotten more of that. Plus, we're getting the Sentinels, finally! One of the most iconic figures of the X-Men universe. And I thought they did it very well. Plus, I love that we had Peter Dinklage really executing that, giving us a really interesting dichotomy there, but never drawing attention to him being an other himself. Great. All of the timeline stuff worked very well. It all delivered where it needed to. The emotional payoffs were all stellar. However, remember when I said they don't know their timelines? Well, this definitely messes up timelines that films that particularly Dark Phoenix doesn't abide by. But, you know. Again, the acting is so good from everyone. The older cast, the new cast, it all just worked. I don't think the visual effects in an X-Men film have ever been better. Those new Sentinels with those moving scales were so good. All of the powers on display were amazing. Plus, it was a really intricate, detailed storyline that they just pulled off effortlessly. At least for me, Days of Future Past is pretty much the perfect X-Men team film that they could have made. And finally, in at number 1, I have Logan. It was really close because, like I said, I enjoy having my full X-Men on that screen. But there's just no denying the impact of Logan. I'd say this is a masterful film. It is just so dang good. Hugh Jackman has literally never been better. I think this is his best performance entire career. Not just talking about Wolverine here. Across the board, this is the best I've ever seen Hugh Jackman. Oh my gosh, was he robbed of even being in the discussion. And talk about robbed, Patrick Stewart was amazing in this movie. And those two alone in this road trip scenario was enough. That could have been the whole film, honestly. We didn't need any superhero stuff. And it works. Oh, it was so good. Plus, the relationship with X-23 was stellar. And we just get so many quiet character moments that just ring true. The script is really a masterclass. I think it is stellar. And then when we do get to the bigger moments, they all work as well. This is a gritty, hard R film. It doesn't hold back in any fashion. Certainly when it comes to violence and gore, but also when it comes to emotional gut punches. This is far and away the most emotional film we could have imagined receiving from the X-Men universe, but it's all earned and a perfect conclusion to this time frame within the universe. I mean, Logan is pretty much perfect to me. I think there are very little flaws, and honestly, it's one of my favorite superhero films, period, and just by an edge, my favorite film within the Fox X-Men universe. So that's it. That is my ranking of all 12 films from the Fox X-Men film universe. What did you think of my ranking and how I put these films into order? But more importantly, share your ranking. I want to know how you would rank the Fox X-Men films. Leave that ranking either down below, or, of course, you can hit me up on Twitter. And if you liked this ranking, make sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on our latest videos. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!